Captain Marcus Chen had seen a lot of strange things in his 15 years commanding the cargo vessel Starbound Horizon. He'd traded with silicon-based life forms who communicated through electromagnetic pulses, negotiated with gaseous beings who existed as sentient clouds, and once accidentally started a diplomatic incident by sneezing during a formal greeting with crystalline ambassadors. But nothing had prepared him for the transmission that crackled through his ship's communication array on what should have been a routine supply run to the outer colonies. "Attention, human vessel," the voice was distinctly feminine, carrying an accent that seemed to blend musical tones with an underlying authority that made Marcus's spine straighten involuntarily. "This is Princess Zixaria of the Celestial Dominion. I hereby commandeer your ship for immediate transport. Bring me here immediately, human." Marcus blinked at the main screen, where static gave way to an image that made his breath catch. The being addressing him was humanoid but clearly alien, with skin that shifted between deep purple and silver like liquid mercury. Her hair, if it could be called that, floated around her head in defiance of gravity, each strand appearing to contain tiny stars that twinkled as she moved. Most striking were her eyes, large, luminous orbs that seemed to hold the depth of nebulae, constantly shifting between colors that had no names in human language. Did she just? Lieutenant Sarah Rodriguez, his communications officer, stared at the screen with her mouth slightly open. Did she just order us around like we're her personal taxi service? "I believe she did," Marcus replied, finding his voice. He cleared his throat and activated the response channel. "Your Highness, with all due respect, this is a civilian cargo vessel. We're not equipped for diplomatic transport, and I'm not sure what you mean by bring me here immediately. Could you clarify your location and the nature of your request?" The princess's expression shifted from regal authority to something that looked suspiciously like amusement. Her lips curved upward in what might have been a smile, though with 2 rows of teeth that gleamed like pearls it was hard to be certain. "Oh, how delightfully human. You ask questions when given a direct command. How wonderfully inefficient. Ma'am, Princess Zixaria will suffice, human captain. And to answer your unnecessarily polite inquiry, I am currently aboard the Royal Dreadnought Void's Embrace, which your primitive sensors have undoubtedly failed to detect, despite its presence merely 3,000 kilometers from your position." Marcus shot a look at his sensor operator, Ensign Kim Park, who was frantically running diagnostics on his equipment. Kim shook his head, sweat beading on his forehead. "Nothing, Captain. Space is clear in all directions." "Impossible," Marcus muttered. Then louder, "Your Highness, our sensors show no other vessels in the immediate vicinity." The princess laughed, a sound like wind chimes in a gentle breeze, but with an underlying note that suggested she found the entire situation hilariously absurd. "Of course they don't, dear human. Our stealth technology is somewhat beyond your current capabilities. Perhaps by several millennia or so. But that's beside the point. I require immediate transport to your vessel because I am, as you humans might say, in a bit of trouble with my father." "Trouble?" Marcus asked, though something in his gut told him he really didn't want to know. "Oh, nothing serious." Zixaria waved a hand dismissively, and Marcus noticed her fingers ended in what looked like crystalline claws that caught the light from her floating hair. "I merely borrowed one of our most sacred artifacts to prove a point about human ingenuity during a rather dull diplomatic dinner." Father was not amused when the artifact began playing what you call heavy metal music and projecting holographic images of human warriors. Apparently, using an ancient relic to demonstrate the artistic merits of your species' cultural expressions is considered deeply inappropriate and potentially catastrophic to interdimensional stability. Marcus felt a headache building behind his temples. "You used a sacred artifact to play heavy metal?" "Among other things," Zixaria said airily. "Did you know that your species' music can resonate with quantum frequencies?" "Absolutely fascinating. The artifact seemed to particularly enjoy something called Metallica, though I must admit the spontaneous generation of miniature black holes during the guitar solos was unexpected." "Black holes," Marcus repeated weakly. "Tiny ones," the princess assured him. "Barely large enough to swallow a small moon." Father was being completely unreasonable about the whole thing. which is why I require sanctuary aboard your vessel while I allow his temper to cool. Consider it an honor, human captain. You will be harboring royalty. Before Marcus could respond, his tactical officer, Commander Elena Vasquez, spoke up from her station. Captain, I'm detecting massive energy signatures. Whatever's out there, it's powering up weapons systems. On the screen, Princess Zixaria's expression shifted from amused to slightly concerned. Father appears to have found me sooner than anticipated. I don't suppose you could accelerate this rescue operation. Royal guards can be so terribly persistent when they put their minds to it. Your Highness, Marcus began, but his words were cut off as space around them suddenly erupted into visibility. Where moments before there had been empty void, now hung a ship that defied every principle of engineering Marcus had ever learned. The void's embrace was less a vessel than a floating palace, its hull seeming to be carved from a single massive crystal that pulsed with inner light. Towers and spires jutted from its surface at impossible angles, connected by bridges that appeared to be made of solidified starlight. The entire structure was easily the size of a small city, and it hung in space with a grace that made Marcus's utilitarian cargo ship look like a flying brick. Impressive, isn't it? Zixaria commented, following his gaze. Mother had it designed by the finest reality sculptors in the galaxy. The throne room alone exists in 17 dimensions simultaneously. Quite comfortable for formal occasions. As they watched, smaller vessels began detaching from the massive ship. These were sleek, predatory-looking craft that moved with the fluid grace of hunting sharks. Energy weapons began charging along their hulls, casting ominous glows in the darkness of space. Those would be the Royal Guard, Zixaria explained helpfully. They're under strict orders to bring me back immediately. I should mention that they consider anyone harboring me to be accessories to my various crimes, which, technically speaking, makes you enemies of the Celestial Dominion the moment I set foot aboard your ship. What? Marcus spun around to stare at her image. You want us to start an interstellar incident? Oh, not start. The princess corrected with another of those pearl-tooth smiles. More like enthusiastically participate in one already in progress. Besides, I have it on good authority that humans excel at impossible situations. Something about stubbornness and refusing to acknowledge when you're beaten. I find it quite admirable. Marcus felt his crew's eyes on him. Sarah was rapidly calculating jump coordinates. Elena had her hand hovering over the weapons console despite the fact that their cargo ship's armaments consisted of a few defensive pulse cannons that would be about as effective against those Royal Guard ships as spitballs against a battleship. Kim was still frantically trying to make his sensors acknowledge the massive alien vessel that was clearly right in front of them. Captain? Dr. James Wright, the ship's science officer, spoke up from his station near the back of the bridge. If I may? The princess mentioned quantum frequency resonance in human music. That's theoretically possible, but it would require an understanding of dimensional mechanics that we're centuries away from developing. If their technology can actually manipulate quantum frequencies using artistic expression. What are you saying, Doc? Marcus asked. I'm saying that whatever this sacred artifact is, it represents technology that could advance human civilization by thousands of years. The scientific applications alone. You're suggesting we harbor an alien fugitive for the sake of scientific advancement? I'm suggesting, Dr. Wright said carefully, that we might want to hear what else she has to say before we decide. On the screen, Zixaria clapped her hands together in delight. Oh, I like this one. Yes, human scientist, I have many things that would interest you. For instance, did you know that your species' tendency toward what you call stubbornness is actually a rare quantum trait? Most species surrender when faced with impossible odds. Humans seem to take them as personal challenges. It's quite remarkable from a scientific standpoint. You've studied humans? Marcus asked. Extensively, the princess nodded. Father considers your species a potential threat precisely because of your unpredictable nature. Most civilizations follow predictable patterns of development. You discover fire, invent the wheel, develop agriculture, eventually achieve spaceflight, and settle into comfortable galactic citizenship. Humans, however, seem to approach every problem with the assumption that the universe is wrong and needs to be corrected. That's not... Marcus began, then stopped. Because honestly, thinking about humanity's history of taking on impossible challenges and somehow succeeding through sheer bloody-mindedness, she might have a point. Your species once looked at the concept of heavier-than-air flight, declared it impossible, then immediately began building machines to prove impossibility wrong. Zixaria continued. You stared at the vast emptiness of space and decided it needed to be conquered. When faced with diseases that had plagued your kind for millennia, you didn't accept them as facts of life. You declared war on microscopic organisms and won. It's absolutely terrifying and completely fascinating. A proximity alarm began sounding as the Royal Guard ships moved closer. Their energy signatures were climbing steadily, and Marcus could see targeting systems beginning to lock onto his ship.
Your Highness, he said urgently, if you're coming aboard, it needs to be now.
Splendid!
Zixaria beamed. Prepare your cargo bay for transport.
I should warn you that I'm bringing a few essential items with me. How many is a few? Marcus asked, but the princess had already cut the communication. On the tactical display, a new signature appeared near their cargo bay. Something was materializing directly inside their ship. Captain, Elena called out. Multiple transports incoming. Whatever she considers essential items, it's a lot of them. Marcus rushed to the cargo bay viewport and stared in amazement. Princess Zixaria stood in the center of what appeared to be a small mountain of alien artifacts, technological devices, and objects that hurt to look at directly. She had changed from what looked like formal court attire to something more practical. Though practical, for an alien princess still involved a form-fitting suit that seemed to be made of liquid starlight and boots that left small constellation patterns wherever she stepped. Greetings, human captain, she called out cheerfully, her voice carrying perfectly through the cargo bay's atmosphere. I do hope you have sufficient storage space. I may have overpacked slightly. As Marcus watched, she gestured to one particularly large device that looked like a crystalline tree with branches that twisted through dimensions his eyes couldn't quite follow. That's the Harmony of Spheres, a musical instrument capable of composing songs that can alter reality. Quite useful for getting out of tight spots. Another gesture indicated what appeared to be a small sun contained within a transparent sphere. Personal solar generator. I do so hate being dependent on ships' power systems. Princess, Marcus activated the cargo bay intercom. Those Royal Guard ships will be in weapons range in less than 2 minutes. Oh, quite right, she nodded, then called out something in a language that sounded like music being played backward while someone argued with physics. Several of her artifacts began to glow, and suddenly the cargo bay was filled with a harmonious humming sound that made Marcus's teeth ache. What is she doing? Sarah asked over the ship's internal comm. Before Marcus could answer, space outside exploded into chaos. The Royal Guard ships, which had been closing in with predatory grace, suddenly found themselves dealing with what appeared to be a localized aurora that had somehow developed aggressive tendencies. Streams of colorful energy began dancing between the ships, not damaging them but clearly confusing their targeting systems as their weapons fire began going wildly off course. Fascinating, Dr. Wright's voice crackled over the comm. She's using the ship's metal hull as a resonance chamber and somehow converting our basic power grid into a quantum disruption field. That should be impossible with our technology. Princess, Marcus spoke into the intercom again. What exactly did you just do to my ship? Zixaria looked up from what appeared to be a control panel made of crystallized music. I've temporarily enhanced your vessel's defensive capabilities using a small portion of my personal effects. Your ship is now capable of minor reality adjustments within a limited radius. Nothing dramatic, mind you, just enough to make those boring Royal Guard ships think twice about aggressive action. Reality adjustments, Marcus repeated. Don't worry, the effects are entirely temporary. Your ship will return to its normal, charmingly primitive state once I remove my equipment. Though I must say, your vessel has excellent acoustic properties. The quantum resonance is quite remarkable for something built by a species that only recently discovered faster-than-light travel. On the bridge's main screen, the Royal Guard ships were regrouping, their formations shifting as they tried to compensate for the strange energy fields now surrounding the starbound horizon. Marcus could see them running new tactical calculations, clearly trying to figure out how a simple cargo vessel had suddenly developed defensive capabilities that shouldn't exist. Captain, Elena reported, they're hailing us. Put them through, Marcus ordered. The screen flickered, and a new alien face appeared. This being was clearly of the same species as Princess Zixaria, but where she radiated mischievous energy, this individual projected cold authority. His features were more angular, his skin a deeper shade of purple, and his eyes held none of the princess's dancing lights. Instead, they seemed to contain the depths of space itself.
Human vessel, the figure spoke with a voice like distant thunder. You are harboring a fugitive from imperial justice. Surrender, Princess Zixaria, immediately, and you will be allowed to depart unharmed.
Marcus took a deep breath. In his 15 years of commanding merchant vessels, he'd faced pirates, hostile aliens, natural disasters, and bureaucratic nightmares that defied description. But he'd never had to decide whether to harbor an alien princess who apparently stole sacred artifacts for the purpose of playing human music to diplomatic dinners. And if we refuse? He asked. The Royal Guard commander's expression didn't change, but somehow became more intimidating. Then you will learn why the Celestial Dominion has ruled this sector of the galaxy for over 10,000 years, human captain. From the cargo bay, Princess Zixaria's voice came over the intercom with cheerful unconcern. Oh, don't mind Commander Thexmar. He's always so dramatic. Tell him I said hello, and that I still think he looked better with the pink hair after that incident with the probability grenades. The commander's stoic expression cracked slightly, revealing what might have been embarrassment. Princess, your father has commanded your immediate return. This human vessel will not protect you from imperial law. Actually, Zixaria's voice carried a note of satisfaction. I believe it will. You see, dear Thexmar, I've just made this ship and its crew part of an ongoing scientific experiment. Attacking them would constitute interference with a royal research project, which, as you well know, carries penalties of its own. Marcus felt his headache intensifying. Princess, what kind of research project? Why, a comprehensive study of human behavior when faced with impossible situations, of course, she replied brightly. I'm particularly interested in observing how your species responds to being caught between alien royalty and alien military forces. For science! Commander Thexmar's image flickered with what appeared to be suppressed frustration. Princess, you cannot simply declare random events to be scientific studies to avoid consequences. Watch me, came the cheerful reply. Marcus looked around his bridge at his crew. Sarah was staring at the navigation console as if it might suddenly develop the ability to solve their current predicament. Elena had her weapon systems ready but was clearly calculating the mathematical impossibility of their small cargo ship surviving against an entire squadron of advanced alien warships. Kim was still trying to make his sensors acknowledge reality, while Dr. Wright was furiously taking notes on everything that had happened. Captain, Wright said quietly, from a purely scientific standpoint, this is the opportunity of several lifetimes. We're witnessing technology that could revolutionize human understanding of physics, quantum mechanics, and dimensional theory. From a survival standpoint, Elena countered, we're about to be vaporized by alien warships because we're harboring a runaway princess who thinks starting interstellar incidents is amusing. Both perspectives have merit, Marcus acknowledged. Then, surprising himself, he made his decision. He activated the general comm channel, broadcasting to both the Royal Guard ships and throughout his own vessel. Commander Thexmar, please inform His Imperial Majesty that the Starbound Horizon formally requests temporary asylum status for Princess Zixaria under the provisions of interstellar maritime law regarding political refugees. We'll need to review the details of any charges against the princess and evaluate the legitimacy of extradition requests according to established galactic protocols. The silence that followed was profound. Even the ship's engines seemed to quiet as everyone processed what Marcus had just said. Finally, Commander Thexmar spoke. Human Captain, are you truly claiming that your primitive vessel constitutes sovereign territory capable of granting asylum to imperial royalty? Actually, Wright said quietly, consulting his personal database, according to the Galactic Maritime Code established by the Interspecies Commerce Treaty of 2387, any registered vessel operating under legitimate commercial authority does have the right to grant temporary sanctuary to individuals seeking asylum, provided proper procedures are followed. Marcus blinked. We actually have that right? Apparently so, though I'm not sure anyone's ever tried to use it against an interstellar empire before.
From the cargo bay came the sound of delighted laughter. "Oh, this is marvelous," Princess Zixaria exclaimed. "Father always said humans were unpredictable, but this exceeds even my expectations. You're actually attempting to out-bureaucrat the celestial dominion." Commander Thexmar's expression suggested that he was reconsidering his career choices. "Princess, this is highly irregular." "Irregular is my specialty, dear Thexmar. Besides, didn't you just hear? This is all part of my scientific research. I'm studying human creative problem-solving methods. The results are absolutely fascinating." Marcus found himself almost smiling despite their impossible situation. There was something infectiously optimistic about the alien princess's attitude, even in the face of what should have been certain destruction. "Commander," he addressed the Royal Guard leader, "we'll need time to process the asylum request properly. According to interstellar law, that should take approximately 72 hours minimum." 72 hours, Thexmar repeated slowly. "Standard galactic time," Marcus confirmed, "during which any hostile action against this vessel would constitute a violation of diplomatic immunity." For a long moment, the Royal Guard commander stared out from the screen with an expression that suggested he was mentally composing his resignation letter. Finally, he spoke. "Human captain, you are either remarkably brave or completely insane." "Por qué no los dos?" Sarah muttered from her station, and Marcus was surprised to find himself agreeing with the sentiment. "Very well," Commander Thexmar continued. "You have 72 hours to process your asylum request. But be warned, when that time expires, if you have not surrendered the princess, the full might of the celestial dominion will fall upon your ship." The transmission ended, and the Royal Guard ships pulled back to what was presumably a safe distance for monitoring rather than immediate destruction. Marcus slumped into his captain's chair, suddenly aware that his uniform was soaked with sweat. "Captain," Princess Zixaria's voice came over the intercom, carrying a note of genuine admiration. "I must say that was absolutely brilliant. I knew humans had potential, but using our own legal systems against us while simultaneously claiming diplomatic immunity. Inspired." "Princess," Marcus replied wearily, "I hope you understand that we've just bought ourselves 3 days to figure out how to survive what's coming next." "Oh, my dear captain," came the amused response. 3 days is practically an eternity. Trust me, I have several ideas about how to resolve this situation. Some of them might even avoid triggering a galactic war."
"Might?" Elena asked.
"Well, one can't make guarantees when dealing with dimensional mechanics and stubborn fathers. But I'm quite optimistic about our chances." As Marcus looked out at the alien warships maintaining their watchful positions around his cargo vessel, he reflected that 3 days ago, his biggest concern had been whether they'd reach the outer colonies on schedule. Now he was harboring an alien princess who stole sacred artifacts, had apparently turned his ship into a temporary violation of physics, and was cheerfully planning to either solve their problems or start an interstellar war. "Dr. Wright," he called out. "You said this was the opportunity of several lifetimes?" "Yes, sir. I just want to confirm, you meant that in a good way, right?" The scientist's pause was not reassuring. "I'll get back to you on that, Captain." From the cargo bay came the sound of alien technology humming with strange harmonics, and Marcus realized that whatever happened over the next 3 days, life aboard the starbound Horizon was never going to be quite the same. 12 hours into their impromptu diplomatic crisis, Marcus discovered that hosting an alien princess was unlike any challenge his military and merchant training had prepared him for. Princess Zixaria had made herself thoroughly at home aboard the starbound Horizon, and her definition of home apparently included rearranging the laws of physics in the immediate vicinity. "Captain," Dr. Wright's voice carried a note of barely controlled scientific excitement as he entered the bridge. "You need to see what she's done to the cargo bay." Marcus followed his science officer down the corridor, noting that the ship's lighting seemed different somehow. Warmer, with subtle color shifts that hadn't been there before. When they reached the cargo bay viewports, Marcus stopped and stared. The cavernous space had been transformed into something between a laboratory, a concert hall, and what could only be described as a 3-dimensional garden of crystalline mathematics. Princess Zixaria's essential items were no longer simply scattered around the bay. They had been arranged in patterns that hurt to look at directly, but somehow made perfect sense.
Streams of energy flowed between the devices in colors that didn't have names, while musical tones that seemed to bypass the ears and speak directly to the soul filled the air. At the center of it all stood the princess herself, her hands dancing over what appeared to be a control interface made of pure light, while she hummed along to a melody that was making Marcus's teeth vibrate in harmony. Fascinating, isn't it? Dr. Wright said, his voice filled with awe. She's created a localized pocket of altered space-time. According to my instruments, that cargo bay is currently experiencing time at roughly 0.7 standard flow rate, while maintaining perfect atmospheric and gravitational conditions. You're telling me she slowed down time in our cargo bay? More like she convinced time to be more relaxed about its usual rigidity, Wright corrected. The mathematics involved are... He gestured helplessly. I don't think we have the conceptual framework to understand them yet. Through the viewport, Princess Zixaria looked up and waved cheerfully at them. She said something, but her words came through the intercom with a strange musical quality that made them seem to arrive in harmony rather than sequence. Good morning, Captain. I trust you slept well despite the gravitational fluctuations. I've been working all night to prepare some gifts for your crew. Gifts? Marcus activated the intercom. Princess, what kind of gifts? Oh, nothing too dramatic. Just some minor enhancements to help with our current situation. For instance, she gestured toward one of her crystalline devices, and suddenly the ship's intercom system began playing what sounded suspiciously like Bach's Brandenburg Concerto, number 214-3, but performed by instruments that definitely didn't exist in any human orchestra. I've taken the liberty of upgrading your communication systems, the princess explained. They now operate on quantum harmonic frequencies, which should make them virtually impossible to intercept or jam. Also, any messages you send will automatically translate themselves into the recipient's preferred aesthetic format. Very useful for diplomatic situations. Aesthetic format? Dr. Wright asked. Well, some species prefer their communications in mathematical equations, others in musical compositions, and a few particularly sophisticated civilizations only accept messages in the form of interpretive dance. Your system will now automatically adapt. Marcus felt his eye begin to twitch. Princess, you've turned our communications array into something that sends messages as... interpretive dance? Among other options, your species seems particularly fond of what you call straightforward verbal communication, so that remains the default setting. But the flexibility is there if needed. From behind them, Lieutenant Rodriguez's voice came over the ship's comm system. Captain, I think you need to get back to the bridge. We're receiving some very strange signals. When Marcus and Dr. Wright returned to the bridge, they found Sarah staring at her console with an expression of mixed confusion and delight. Sir, we're getting communication requests from, well, everyone. Everyone? Marcus asked. 17 different species, 4 trading consortiums, 3 scientific research institutions, and what appears to be a collective consciousness that exists primarily as organized space dust. They all want to talk to us. Elena looked up from her tactical station. Word has spread about our current situation. Half the sector seems to think we're either insane or brilliant for claiming asylum rights against the Celestial Dominion. What's the other half think? That we're about to provide excellent entertainment when the Imperial fleet shows up. Marcus rubbed his temples. Any of these communications seem important? Sarah checked her readings. The Merchant Guild wants to offer legal support in exchange for exclusive trading rights to whatever technology the princess develops during her stay. The Galactic Scientific Collective is offering to mediate the dispute in exchange for research data. And, she paused, looking puzzled. The organized space dust wants to write poetry about our situation. Poetry? Apparently they find the concept of tiny biological entities defying imperial authority through bureaucratic technicalities to be deeply moving. They're calling it the Ballad of Improbable Courage. Dr. Ferdinander Wright was studying his own readings with growing excitement. Captain, the princess wasn't kidding about the communication upgrades. Our systems are now interfacing with quantum communication networks I didn't even know existed. We're receiving data streams that suggest vast interstellar communities have been watching our situation with great interest. What kind of interest? The kind that suggests this isn't the first time someone has tried to use asylum law against the Celestial Dominion, Wright replied. But it appears to be the first time anyone has actually made it work. Marcus was about to respond when Princess Zixaria's voice came over the ship's comm with that same musical quality that was becoming familiar. Captain, if I might interrupt your fascinating discussion of interstellar politics, I believe we have visitors approaching. On the main screen, space rippled like water, and 3 ships materialized in formation around the Royal Guard vessels. These newcomers were sleek, elegant craft that seemed to be constructed from the same impossible materials as the princess's equipment. Their hulls shifted between transparency and opacity, occasionally revealing internal structures that appeared to extend into dimensions the eye couldn't quite follow. Those would be my cousins, the princess explained cheerfully. Prince Kethvar commands the lead vessel, Princess Nixandra II, and that delightfully unstable craft on the right belongs to my dear cousin Zephyros, who has never met a dangerous experiment he didn't want to try immediately. Commander Thexmar's image appeared on the screen, his expression suggesting that his day had just gotten significantly more complicated. Princess, your cousin's arrival does not change the situation. You are still under arrest by order of His Imperial Majesty. Actually, a new voice interrupted, smooth and cultured with an undertone of amused arrogance. The situation has changed quite considerably. The screen split to show a new figure. Prince Kethvar bore a strong resemblance to Princess Zixaria. But where she radiated chaotic energy, he projected calculated intelligence. His skin held deeper purple tones, and his floating hair seemed to be arranged in precise patterns that hurt to contemplate. Greetings, human captain, the prince continued. I am Prince Kethvar, first scholar of the Celestial Dominion and heir apparent to the theoretical throne. I come bearing news that significantly impacts your current legal position. What kind of news? Marcus asked, though he was beginning to suspect that nothing involving this royal family was ever going to be simple. The kind that suggests my beloved cousin's crime may have been considerably more significant than anyone initially realized. Kethvar replied, Tell me, human captain, has Princess Zixaria explained exactly what she did with the harmonic codex? Marcus looked toward the intercom pickup. Princess? Oh, that. Zixaria's voice carried a note of sheepish admission. I may have omitted a few details in my initial explanation. The harmonic codex wasn't just playing your music, dear captain. It was analyzing it. Analyzing it how? Dr. Joe says, Wright asked. Well, human music apparently contains quantum resonance patterns that shouldn't exist in any naturally evolved art form. When the codex began processing your heavy metal compositions, it discovered mathematical structures embedded in the music that correspond to fundamental forces we've never encountered before. Prince Kethvar nodded gravely. In simple terms, human captain, your species appears to have accidentally discovered several forms of applied dimensional mathematics through what you call artistic expression. The implications are staggering. Commander Thexmar's image flickered with what appeared to be frustration. Prince Kethvar, regardless of these discoveries, the princess still violated imperial law by removing sacred artifacts from the palace. Ah, but that's where things become interesting, a third voice interrupted. This one carrying a distinctly feminine tone with an undertone of barely controlled violence. The screen divided again to show Princess Nixandra, whose appearance suggested she had no patience for diplomatic niceties. Her skin was darker than her cousin's, shot through with veins that pulsed with silver light, and her eyes held the cold intensity of vacuum itself. Dear Commander, she continued with a smile that revealed teeth designed for tearing through considerably more substantial materials than food, our investigation into the circumstances surrounding the princess's actions has revealed some fascinating information about the dinner party in question. What kind of information? Marcus asked, though he was beginning to suspect he didn't really want to know. The kind that suggests Father's diplomatic guests were considerably more interested in human military capabilities than human artistic achievements. Zixaria's voice came over the comm with a note of grim satisfaction. They weren't attending a cultural exchange dinner, Captain. They were conducting reconnaissance. The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. Marcus felt a chill run down his spine as pieces began falling into place. You're saying that alien diplomats were using a dinner party to gather intelligence about humanity? Specifically about human military technology and strategic capabilities, Prince Kethvar confirmed.
The Harmonic Codex's analysis of your music revealed mathematical principles that could revolutionize weapons technology. Our guests were quite interested in determining whether your species had developed these applications deliberately.
But we haven't, Dr. Wright protested. Human music evolved naturally from cultural and emotional expression. We had no idea it contained advanced mathematical structures. Precisely, Princess Nixandra said with that predatory smile. Which makes humanity either incredibly sophisticated at hiding technological development or naturally capable of intuitive breakthroughs that other species require millennia to achieve through scientific method. Either possibility makes your species extremely valuable to certain political interests. Marcus felt his world shift as he realized what they were really talking about. These diplomats? They were planning to make contact with humanity? More than that, Zixaria's voice carried a note of anger that Marcus hadn't heard before. They were planning to establish protective oversight over human development, for your own good, of course. Can't have a species with natural mathematical intuition developing dangerous technologies without proper guidance. Protective oversight, Marcus repeated slowly. A polite term for conquest, Princess Nixandra clarified. When I played your music through the Harmonic Codex and it began revealing advanced dimensional mathematics, their diplomatic masks slipped rather dramatically. The representative from the hegemony actually suggested that humanity should be relocated to safer territories for the good of galactic stability. The fourth royal voice finally joined the conversation, crackling with manic energy and what sounded like barely contained explosions in the background. Which is when dear cousin Zixaria decided to demonstrate exactly how dangerous human cultural expressions could be, Prince Zephyros announced cheerfully. The miniature black holes were my suggestion, by the way. Excellent for making diplomatic points. Marcus stared at the screen, where the three royal cousins were looking remarkably pleased with themselves, while Commander Thexmar appeared to be reconsidering his entire career path. Let me make sure I understand this, Marcus said slowly. Princess Zixaria didn't just steal a sacred artifact to play human music. She exposed an alien conspiracy to conquer humanity by proving that our artistic expressions contain advanced mathematical principles. More or less, Zixaria confirmed, though I prefer to think of it as conducting impromptu cultural research with significant political implications. Dr. Wright was frantically taking notes while staring at his readings. Captain, this explains the communication requests we've been receiving. If word has spread that humanity possesses natural mathematical abilities that other species require advanced technology to achieve, then suddenly, half the galaxy wants to either study us, recruit us, or control us, Marcus finished grimly. Precisely. Prince Kethvar nodded. Which brings us to the current situation. Princess Zixaria's actions, while technically illegal, have revealed a direct threat to human independence. Under imperial law, exposing threats to developing species is not only legal but mandatory for all royal family members. Commander Thexmar's expression suggested that he was rapidly losing control of the situation. Prince Kethvar, are you suggesting that the princess's actions were justified? I'm suggesting that the princess acted to prevent a violation of the Galactic Non-Interference Treaty, Kethvar replied smoothly. The plans our diplomatic guests were discussing would have constituted illegal interference with a developing species. Exposing such plans is the duty of any imperial citizen, regardless of the methods employed. Marcus felt a surge of hope, quickly followed by suspicion. That sounds almost too convenient. What's the catch? Princess Nixandra laughed, a sound like crystalline wind chimes being used as weapons. The catch, dear human captain, is that humanity is no longer a developing species in the eyes of galactic law. The mathematical principles embedded in your cultural expressions mark you as a naturally advanced civilization. You're now eligible for full galactic citizenship, whether you want it or not. And the consequences of that are? Marcus asked, though he suspected he wouldn't like the answer. Political, economic, and military obligations, Prince Zephyros said cheerfully over the sound of what appeared to be a small explosion. Trade agreements, mutual defense pacts, resource-sharing arrangements, territorial negotiations. Oh, and someone will need to represent humanity in the Galactic Council. Marcus looked around his bridge at his crew, who were all staring at him with expressions ranging from excitement to horror. In the space of a day, they had gone from running a simple cargo route to apparently becoming humanity's first official contact with galactic civilization.
Princess, he said slowly, when you said you were studying human behavior in impossible situations, you weren't kidding, were you? Oh, my dear Captain. Zixaria's voice carried that familiar note of mischievous delight. I haven't even started yet. Wait until you see what I have planned for tomorrow.
From the tactical station, Elena looked up with an expression of resigned determination. Captain, should I prepare the crew for whatever this is going to become?
Marcus considered the question seriously.
They were harboring an alien princess who had exposed a conspiracy against humanity while accidentally elevating their entire species to galactic citizenship status. Royal Guard ships surrounded them while 3 more alien royals had arrived to complicate the situation further. Half the sector was apparently watching their every move, and somewhere out there, hostile alien factions were presumably making new plans to deal with humanity's unexpected political promotion. Elena, he said finally, I don't think anything could prepare us for this. Just make sure everyone knows that as of right now, we're not just representing ourselves anymore. What are we representing? She asked. Marcus looked out at the alien ships surrounding them, then down at the intercom that connected them to an alien princess, who had somehow made their cargo vessel into a focal point of interstellar politics. Humanity, he said simply. We're representing all of humanity. And somehow, I don't think we're going to be able to approach this like any normal diplomatic situation. From the cargo bay came the sound of alien technology harmonizing with human engineering, and Princess Zixaria's laughter echoing with musical tones that seemed to promise that their adventures had only just begun. 24 hours into what Marcus was beginning to think of as the most complicated diplomatic crisis in human history, the situation had evolved from merely impossible to completely absurd. The starbound horizon now found itself at the center of what appeared to be an impromptu galactic conference, with representatives from dozens of species arriving hourly to witness what the interstellar news networks were calling the human incident.
Captain, Sarah reported from her communication station, which had been continuously upgraded throughout the night by Princess Zixaria's technological interventions.
We now have 47 ships in the immediate vicinity, with more arriving every few hours. The Galactic Broadcasting Network has established a permanent relay station, and something called the Interdimensional Ethics Committee is requesting permission to set up monitoring equipment. Marcus looked out at the growing fleet of alien vessels surrounding his cargo ship. What had started as a handful of Royal Guard ships had transformed into a bizarre collection of craft, representing every major galactic civilization. Some ships were elegant crystalline structures that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Others appeared to be living organisms the size of small cities, their bioluminescent hulls pulsing with organic light. A few defied description entirely, existing as geometric impossibilities that hurt to look at directly. Any word from Earth? Marcus asked. Dr. Wright looked up from his science station, where he had been monitoring quantum communication channels that hadn't existed on their ship 2 days ago. The Solar Communications Array picked up our situation approximately 18 hours ago. Earth's governments are, well, they're having some difficulty processing the implications. Which implications specifically? The alien princess, the galactic citizenship status, or the fact that our music apparently contains advanced mathematics? All of them. Wright replied, though I believe the phrase completely unprepared for first contact with an interstellar monarchy was used several times in the official response. From the cargo bay, Princess Zixaria's voice came over the enhanced intercom system with its characteristic musical undertone. Captain, might I suggest we hold a proper diplomatic reception? I've taken the liberty of preparing some refreshments suitable for multiple species' dietary requirements. Marcus activated the intercom. Princess, what kind of refreshments? Oh, nothing too exotic. Some crystallized light for the energy-based species, fermented stellar gases for the methane breathers, concentrated probability for the mathematical entities, and I replicated some of your human coffee for anyone brave enough to try it. You replicated coffee? Using quantum analysis of your ship's food synthesizers. I must admit, I'm fascinated by any beverage that requires such precise chemical balance to avoid becoming toxic. It's like a delicious form of chemistry experiment. Marcus was about to respond when Elena called out from the tactical station. Captain, we have new arrivals. 3 large vessels approaching from different vectors. The main screen flickered to show 3 ships unlike anything in the growing fleet around them. The first was a massive sphere that seemed to be constructed from interlocking geometric patterns that rotated through dimensions Marcus's eyes couldn't quite follow. The second appeared to be a living mountain that had somehow learned to fly, its surface covered with forests and cities that sparkled with bioluminescent beauty. The third was the most unsettling, a vessel that looked perfectly normal until you realized that it was simultaneously there and not there, existing in a state of quantum uncertainty that made Marcus's vision blur when he tried to focus on it.
Those would be the big players. Prince Kethvar's voice came through on the quantum communication channel. The geometric vessel belongs to the architects. They're the oldest civilization in the galaxy, responsible for establishing most of our fundamental laws and treaties. The Living Mountain is a world ship from the Gardner Collective, and the Quantum Uncertain one, that's a representative from the probability courts. Probability courts? Dr. Wright asked with scientific curiosity. Beings that exist in multiple timelines simultaneously, Princess Nixa Sandra explained with her characteristic predatory amusement. They adjudicate disputes that involve temporal paradoxes or dimensional conflicts. Their presence here suggests that someone believes this situation could have significant causality implications. Marcus felt his headache returning. Are you telling me that harboring Princess Zixaria could cause timeline problems? Not harboring her, Prince Zephyros interrupted cheerfully over the sound of what appeared to be controlled explosions. But the revelation about human mathematical intuition has already started changing galactic development patterns. 14 species have requested immediate cultural exchanges to study your artistic expressions. 6 civilizations have offered military alliances based on your potential strategic capabilities, and 3 separate temporal monitoring stations have detected probability fluctuations centered on this location. Probability fluctuations? The future is becoming less certain, Zixaria explained with a note of satisfaction. Humans weren't supposed to achieve galactic recognition for another 300 years, according to most probability models. My little demonstration has accelerated your timeline considerably, and the universe is still calculating the implications. Sarah looked up from her communications console with an expression of barely controlled panic. Captain, the architects are requesting permission to come aboard. They want to conduct formal interviews regarding humanity's intentions for galactic citizenship. And the Gardner Collective is asking about our terraforming techniques, Elena added. Apparently, they're fascinated by humanity's approach to environmental modification. The probability courts, Dr. Wright reported, are requesting access to human historical records to calculate the likelihood of various future scenarios. They seem particularly interested in our military history. Marcus stared at the growing fleet of alien vessels, each representing civilizations that had been exploring the galaxy for thousands or millions of years, all focused on his small cargo ship because an alien princess had decided to use a sacred artifact to play heavy metal music at a diplomatic dinner. Princess, he said into the intercom, I think we need to discuss strategy before this gets any more complicated. Excellent suggestion, Captain. Why don't you join me in the cargo bay? I've prepared a presentation that should help clarify our options. When Marcus entered the cargo bay, he stopped in amazement. What had been an impossible arrangement of alien artifacts the day before had transformed into something that looked like a cross between a briefing room and a 3-dimensional star map. The princess stood at the center, her hands dancing over holographic displays that showed real-time political and economic data from across the galaxy. Impressive, isn't it? She said cheerfully. I've been monitoring galactic reactions to our situation all night. The results are quite fascinating from a sociological standpoint. The holographic displays showed streams of data that hurt Marcus's brain to look at directly, but the overall patterns were clear. Trade routes were shifting, military alliances were being reconsidered, and economic markets were fluctuating as civilizations tried to position themselves relative to humanity's sudden emergence as a galactic player. Princess, what exactly have you done to the galaxy? Nothing intentionally dramatic, she replied with that innocent expression that Marcus was learning to distrust. I simply demonstrated that humans possess intuitive abilities that most species spend millennia developing through technological advancement. The political implications are... Substantial. One of the holographic displays zoomed in to show a detailed analysis of human cultural expressions. Music, literature, visual arts, and even basic mathematical concepts were being deconstructed to reveal underlying patterns that corresponded to advanced galactic sciences. Your species' natural development has produced art forms that contain principles of quantum mechanics, dimensional mathematics, temporal theory, and probability manipulation, Zix Aria explained. Most civilizations require sophisticated technology to achieve similar results. You do it instinctively through cultural expression. But we don't even understand most of this, Marcus protested. We're not deliberately creating advanced mathematics through our music. Exactly! The princess exclaimed with delight, which makes it even more remarkable. Conscious development of these principles typically requires thousands of years of scientific advancement. Unconscious development suggests either incredible luck or natural evolutionary advantages that other species lack. Marcus studied the displays, noting patterns he couldn't begin to understand but that clearly had significant implications. What are our options here? Because I'm getting the impression that this situation is bigger than just diplomatic asylum. Oh, considerably bigger, Zixaria agreed. At this point, we have several possible paths forward, each with interesting consequences. The holographic display shifted to show what appeared to be a decision tree with branches extending in multiple directions. Some branches glowed with warm, encouraging light, while others seemed to disappear into ominous darkness. Option 1, the princess began, gesturing to the first branch, is immediate integration into galactic civilization. Humanity accepts full citizenship rights, establishes formal diplomatic relations, and begins participating in galactic trade, politics, and military obligations. Consequences? Rapid technological advancement, access to galactic resources and knowledge, protection from hostile species, but also loss of human cultural independence and potential exploitation by more advanced civilizations. Marcus nodded grimly. Option 2? Delayed integration under protective supervision, humanity is granted developing species status with a gradual introduction to galactic civilization over several decades. That sounds safer. It would be, the princess agreed, if not for the fact that your natural mathematical abilities make you too valuable to leave unprotected. Several civilizations would likely attempt to establish protective relationships that amount to informal conquest. The holographic display highlighted several of the alien ships in the growing fleet, indicating which ones represented potential threats versus allies. Option 3? Zyxaria's expression grew more serious. Rejection of galactic citizenship entirely. Humanity declares itself isolationist and refuses formal contact with galactic civilization. And the consequences of that? Possible, but problematic. Your location is known, your capabilities have been demonstrated, and galactic law regarding non-interference becomes murky when dealing with species that possess strategic advantages. Some civilizations might respect your isolation, others might not. Marcus studied the branching possibilities, noting that several paths seemed to lead to outcomes marked with warning symbols that pulsed ominously. What would you recommend, Princess? Zixaria smiled, and Marcus realized that she had been leading up to this moment since the beginning of their conversation. I recommend option 4, which I've taken the liberty of developing while monitoring the current situation. Option 4? Selective integration with conditional independence. Humanity establishes formal diplomatic relations and accepts galactic citizenship, but maintains autonomous control over cultural development and internal affairs. You gain access to galactic resources and protection while preserving human independence. That sounds ideal. What's the catch? You need a sponsor, the princess explained. Someone to vouch for humanity's ability to handle galactic citizenship responsibly and provide protection during your integration period. Marcus felt pieces clicking into place. And you're volunteering?
Not just me, Zixaria gestured, and the holographic display expanded to show the positions of her cousin's ships.
The entire royal family. We're prepared to offer formal sponsorship for human galactic citizenship under the Celestial Dominion's protection. In exchange for cultural exchange programs, joint scientific research, and military cooperation agreements.
Nothing that would compromise human independence, but enough to establish mutually beneficial relationships. Marcus was about to respond when his communicator crackled with Sarah's voice. "Captain, the Architect vessel is requesting immediate response to their diplomatic overtures. They're threatening to invoke emergency intervention protocols if we don't establish formal communication within the hour." "What does that mean?" Marcus asked. Prince Kethvar's voice came through the quantum channel with a note of urgency. "It means they're prepared to make first contact decisions for humanity if they believe you're unable to do so yourselves. Emergency intervention protocols allow the architects to establish protective supervision over species that appear to be facing imminent threats." "Threats from who?" "From the growing number of civilizations that want to exploit humanity's natural abilities before you learn to protect yourselves," Princess Nixandra replied grimly. "The hegemony forces have been mobilizing since news of your mathematical intuition spread. They're not the only ones." Through the cargo bay viewport, Marcus could see new ships arriving hourly, their configurations ranging from clearly peaceful to obviously military. The situation was spiraling beyond anything his merchant vessel was equipped to handle. "Princess," he said finally, "if we accept your family's sponsorship, what happens next? Formal ceremonies, treaty negotiations, establishment of diplomatic protocols, and the beginning of humanity's official participation in galactic civilization." Zixaria replied, "Also, I get to avoid punishment for stealing sacred artifacts by claiming it was all part of a diplomatic mission to establish first contact with a strategically important species." "And if we refuse?" The princess's expression grew somber. "Then humanity faces galactic integration without protection, guidance, or allies. Your species is remarkable, Captain, but you're not ready for the political complexities of interstellar civilization. Without proper support, human independence could be compromised within a generation." Marcus looked out at the fleet of alien vessels surrounding his ship, each representing civilizations with their own agendas regarding humanity's future. The weight of speaking for his entire species pressed down on him like a physical force. "I need to consult with my crew," he said finally. "Of course," Zixaria nodded. "But Captain, the universe won't wait indefinitely for humanity to decide its future. Change is coming whether you're ready for it or not. The question is whether you'll help shape that change or let it shape you." As Marcus left the cargo bay, his mind racing with impossible decisions and unthinkable responsibilities, he reflected that 3 days ago his biggest concern had been maintaining his ship's delivery schedule. Now he was being asked to make choices that would determine humanity's place in the galaxy for generations to come. The princess's laughter followed him down the corridor, musical and alien, and somehow reassuring. Whatever happened next, Marcus realized it was going to be the kind of adventure that no amount of merchant marine training could have prepared him for. 36 hours after Princess Zixaria had commandeered the starbound Horizon, Marcus found himself sitting in what had once been his ship's modest conference room, now transformed into something that defied both architectural logic and several laws of physics. The princess's technological enhancements had expanded the space into a multi-dimensional meeting chamber capable of accommodating representatives from 17 different species simultaneously, each existing in their preferred atmospheric and gravitational conditions. "Captain, Doctor," Wright whispered from beside him, his voice filled with scientific wonder and existential terror in equal measure. "I've been monitoring the quantum field fluctuations around the ship. According to my readings, we're currently existing in approximately 47 different dimensional states simultaneously. Is that dangerous?" Marcus asked, watching as a being made of crystallized mathematics attempted to communicate with what appeared to be a sentient gas cloud through interpretive geometry. "I honestly have no idea," Wright admitted. "The principles involved are so far beyond our current understanding that we might as well be studying magic. But the princess assures me everything is perfectly safe." Marcus looked across the impossible conference table at Princess Zixaria, who was cheerfully mediating a discussion between the architect representative and a delegation from something called the Harmony Collective. Her ability to simultaneously translate concepts between species that existed in entirely different conceptual frameworks was nothing short of miraculous. "Human Captain Chen," the architect representative spoke, its voice somehow managing to sound both ancient and perfectly clear despite coming from a geometric form that existed primarily as mathematical concepts.
We require clarification of your species' intentions regarding galactic integration. Marcus stood, acutely aware that his words would likely determine humanity's future relationship with the oldest civilization in the galaxy. Honored architect, humanity is prepared to accept galactic citizenship under appropriate conditions. We seek integration that preserves our cultural autonomy while allowing us to contribute to and benefit from galactic civilization. Define appropriate conditions, the architect requested, its form shifting through patterns that hurt to look at directly. Before Marcus could respond, Princess Sixaria interjected smoothly. The Celestial Dominion formally proposes to sponsor humanity's integration under the Graduated Citizenship Protocol, established in Galactic Year 847,293. This would grant humans full voting rights in the Galactic Council while maintaining cultural protections and providing military security during the transition period. The response from the assembled representatives was immediate and cacophonous. The Harmony Collective began generating musical tones that translated into formal objections about precedent and proper procedure. The Merchant Guild's representative, a creature that looked like a walking contract with tentacles, started reciting trade law violations in 17 different languages simultaneously. The being made of crystallized mathematics simply exploded into a shower of glowing symbols that somehow conveyed deep disapproval. Order! The voice came from the representative of the probability courts, who existed as a flickering uncertainty that occasionally resolved into glimpses of different possible beings. This assembly will observe proper temporal causality protocols. Each statement will be evaluated for its impact on galactic timeline stability. Princess Nixandra, who had been observing the proceedings with predatory amusement, leaned forward. Perhaps we should address the underlying concern that several representatives seem reluctant to voice directly. Which concern? The Merchant Guild representative asked suspiciously. The concern that humanity's natural mathematical intuition represents a potential strategic threat to existing galactic power structures. Nixandra replied with a smile that revealed her carnivorous dental arrangement. Several civilizations in this room have spent millennia developing technological solutions to problems that humans appear to solve instinctively through cultural expression. The conference room fell silent except for the quantum harmonics of the princess's equipment. Marcus felt the weight of alien attention focused on him with uncomfortable intensity. Princess Nixandra raises a valid point, the architect acknowledged. Human capabilities represent an unprecedented development in galactic evolution. Historical precedent suggests that such significant variables require careful management. Management? Marcus asked, not liking the implications of that word. Prince Kethvar materialized in the conference room through what appeared to be a controlled violation of local space-time, his arrival accompanied by holographic displays showing real-time galactic political analysis. Perhaps guidance would be a more appropriate term. Humanity's integration will require careful coordination to prevent destabilization of existing treaties and trade agreements. The holographic displays showed the cascade effects of humanity's emergence as a galactic player. Trade routes were being renegotiated, military alliances were being reconsidered, and several civilizations were apparently engaged in emergency strategic planning sessions. The hegemony has formally requested a closed session with the Galactic Council regarding the human question, Kethvar reported. They're arguing that immediate containment measures are necessary to prevent what they're calling catastrophic technological acceleration among developing species. Containment? Marcus felt his temper rising. Are you telling me that alien civilizations are discussing containing humanity like we're some kind of dangerous experiment? Not all of them, Princess Zixaria said quickly. The scientific collective is arguing for immediate research partnerships. The Gardner Collective wants to establish cultural exchange programs, and the Harmonic Federation is proposing to study human music composition techniques for their own artistic development. But yes, Prince Zephyros added as he materialized in an explosion of controlled chaos that temporarily turned part of the conference room into a demonstration of advanced pyrotechnics. Several civilizations are concerned about humanity's potential impact on galactic stability. Your species has a reputation for approaching impossible problems with creative solutions that other civilizations would consider dangerously unpredictable. Marcus looked around the room at the assembled alien representatives, each representing civilizations with thousands or millions of years of spacefaring experience, all focused on determining what to do about humanity. The weight of responsibility was staggering. "What exactly do they think we're going to do?" he asked. The architect's form shifted into patterns that somehow conveyed patient explanation. Human historical records indicate a species with remarkable adaptability and persistent tendency toward exponential technological development. Combined with natural mathematical intuition, this suggests potential for rapid advancement that could disrupt established galactic hierarchies. "We're not trying to disrupt anything," Marcus protested. "We just want to explore the galaxy and maybe learn from more advanced civilizations. That's exactly what concerns them." The Harmony Collective representative chimed in with musical tones that translated into wry amusement. "Most species approach galactic integration with appropriate reverence for established order. Humans appear to approach it as an interesting challenge to be overcome through creative problem-solving." Dr. Wright spoke up from his position at the science station. "If I may address the assembly? Humanity's mathematical intuition isn't a deliberate attempt to circumvent normal development patterns. We're not even aware of most of the principles embedded in our cultural expressions. We're simply creating art that expresses our experiences and emotions, which is precisely what makes it so remarkable," Prince Kethvar noted. Unconscious development of advanced mathematical principles through emotional expression represents a completely novel evolutionary path. The implications for consciousness studies alone are staggering. Princess Zixaria stood, her form somehow becoming more regal and commanding as she addressed the assembly. "The question before us isn't whether humanity represents change, it's whether we'll guide that change constructively or allow it to develop chaotically. The Celestial Dominion sponsorship proposal provides a framework for managed integration that benefits all parties." "And the terms of this sponsorship?" the Merchant Guild representative asked, its contractual tentacles writhing with interest. "Mutual defense agreements, joint research initiatives, cultural exchange programs, and graduated integration into galactic economic systems," Princess Nixandra enumerated. "Humanity gains protection and guidance during their transition to galactic citizenship. The Dominion gains access to human creative and problem-solving methodologies." Essentially, Prince Zephyros added with his characteristic chaotic enthusiasm, "We're proposing to approach humanity's integration as a collaborative experiment rather than a containment protocol. Much more interesting from a scientific standpoint." The probability court's representative flickered through several possible states before stabilizing into something resembling focused attention. "This proposal requires temporal impact assessment. Human integration under Dominion sponsorship could produce significant timeline variations, which is why we're conducting this formal assembly," the architect acknowledged. "All major galactic powers must agree to any integration protocol involving species with strategic capabilities." Marcus felt the moment crystallizing around him. The assembled representatives were essentially conducting a trial to determine humanity's fate, and their decision would reverberate through generations. "If I may," he said, standing to address the assembly directly, "I'd like to make something clear about humanity's position in these negotiations." The conference room fell silent, alien attention focusing on him with uncomfortable intensity. "We appreciate the Celestial Dominion's offer of sponsorship, and we understand the concerns about galactic stability. But humanity won't accept any agreement that treats us as subjects rather than partners. We're willing to learn, to contribute, and to grow into our role as galactic citizens. But we'll do it as equals, not as a species requiring management or containment." The silence that followed was profound. Several alien representatives exchanged communications in frequencies Marcus couldn't detect, while others seemed to be consulting with off-site authorities. Finally, the architect spoke. "Human Captain Chen, your species' position is unexpected. Most emerging civilizations express gratitude for guidance and protection. You appear to be negotiating from a position of perceived equality, despite lacking advanced technology or established galactic relationships." "Because we don't see this as a charity situation," Marcus replied firmly. "Humanity has capabilities that other civilizations find valuable, or you wouldn't all be here. We're willing to share those capabilities and learn from your experiences, but only as partners in a mutually beneficial relationship." Princess Zixaria's expression shifted to something Marcus recognized as impressed admiration. "Captain, you've just articulated exactly why Father considers humanity potentially dangerous. Most species approach galactic integration with appropriate humility. Humans approach it with confident expectation of mutual benefit. Is that a problem? Dr. Wright asked. Not a problem, Prince Kethvar corrected. A paradigm shift. If humanity successfully integrates as equal partners rather than protected subjects, it could fundamentally change how galactic civilization approaches relationships with emerging species. The Harmony Collective representative began generating complex musical patterns that translated into excited discussion about precedent and potential. The Merchant Guild's contractual tentacles were writhing with what appeared to be entrepreneurial enthusiasm, while the being made of crystallized mathematics had reformed itself into equations that seemed to be calculating profit margins. The proposal has merit, the architect announced after a period of internal consultation. However, implementation will require unprecedented coordination between galactic powers. We propose a trial period of formal association with full citizenship status contingent upon successful demonstration of compatibility with galactic law and custom. How long a trial period? Marcus asked. 50 Earth years, the probability court's representative stated. Sufficient time to assess long-term compatibility while minimizing timeline disruption if adjustment becomes necessary. Marcus felt his crew's attention on him. 50 years was longer than any of them would likely live, but it represented humanity's entry into a galactic civilization that offered opportunities beyond imagination. We'll need to consult with Earth's governments, he said finally. Of course, Princess Zixaria nodded. Though I should mention that time is somewhat limited. The hegemony is mobilizing forces for what they're calling protective intervention, and several other factions are making similar preparations. If we don't formalize humanity's status soon, the decision may be made for us through military action. Marcus felt the weight of impossible decisions pressing down on him. Everything had started with an alien princess commandeering his ship, and now he was potentially negotiating humanity's entry into galactic civilization while enemy fleets gathered in the darkness beyond. Princess, he said quietly, when you said you were studying human behavior in impossible situations, you really weren't kidding, were you? Oh, my dear Captain, she replied with that familiar, mischievous smile. I told you at the beginning, this is just the start. Tomorrow, we get to find out what happens when humanity officially becomes a galactic power. That's when things will really get interesting. Looking around the impossible conference room at alien representatives who were calmly discussing the future of human civilization, Marcus realized that Princess Zixaria's definition of interesting was going to require some serious adjustment to his understanding of the possible. 72 hours after Princess Zixaria had transformed the starbound Horizon from a simple cargo vessel into the unlikely epicenter of galactic diplomacy, Marcus stood on what had once been his ship's observation deck, now reconfigured into a command center that existed in 17 dimensions simultaneously. Through the enhanced viewports, he could see the largest gathering of alien vessels in recorded galactic history, all focused on his small ship and the decisions being made within its impossibly expanded hull. Captain, Sarah reported from her position at the Quantum Communications Array. Earth Central Command has finished reviewing our situation report. President Chen sends her personal regards and... Sarah paused, checking her readings again. And I quote, "Tell Captain Chen that he has authorization to make whatever decisions are necessary to ensure humanity's survival and dignity. But if he starts another galactic war, we're promoting him to Admiral and making it his responsibility to win it. Trust Earth's leadership to maintain their sense of humor even when faced with humanity's entry into galactic civilization. Any other messages from home? Approximately 4 billion, ranging from scientific inquiries to marriage proposals to detailed suggestions about where you should tell various alien civilizations to go." Sarah replied, "Dr. Wright has been particularly popular with the research communities. Apparently, his reports on Princess Zixaria's dimensional enhancements have caused several paradigm shifts in theoretical physics. Speaking of the princess," Elena called out from the tactical station, "we have movement from the hegemony fleet. They're taking up attack formations approximately 50,000 kilometers from our position." Marcus looked out at the massive alien warships that had been gathering throughout the previous day. The hegemony forces were impressive, sleek, predatory vessels that radiated menace even while maintaining diplomatic distances. More concerning were the ships from unknown civilizations that had arrived without announcing their intentions. "How many potentially hostile vessels are we looking at?" Marcus asked. "Difficult to say," Elena replied grimly.
The hegemony has brought a full battle fleet, 47 ships ranging from destroyers to dreadnoughts. But we're also seeing movement from at least 6 other military forces that haven't declared their allegiances. From the cargo bay, Princess Sixaria's voice came over the enhanced intercom with characteristic cheerfulness. "Captain, you might want to join me down here. The real negotiations are about to begin, and I believe your personal presence would be diplomatically advantageous." When Marcus entered the cargo bay, he found it had been transformed yet again. The space now resembled the interior of a vast amphitheater, with viewing areas arranged in complex three-dimensional patterns that allowed dozens of alien representatives to participate simultaneously while existing in their preferred environmental conditions. At the center, Princess Zixaria stood before what appeared to be a holographic representation of the entire galactic political situation, complete with real-time updates of fleet movements, trade negotiations, and diplomatic communications. "Ah, Captain!" she greeted him warmly. "Perfect timing. We're about to begin the formal ratification process for humanity's galactic citizenship. I should warn you that it's likely to get quite dramatic." "Dramatic how?" Marcus asked, though he suspected he didn't want to know. "Well, several civilizations have formally objected to the Dominion sponsorship proposal," Prince Kethvar explained as he materialized through a controlled dimensional fold. "The hegemony is insisting on protective custody arrangements. The Void Dancers want to study human consciousness through direct neural interface, and the Entropy Collective is proposing to solve the entire situation by temporarily removing humanity from this timeline until galactic opinion settles." "Remove us from the timeline?" Dr. Wright asked with scientific horror. "Temporarily," Princess Nixonendra emphasized as she arrived through what appeared to be a small, localized war zone. "Only a few centuries, barely noticeable from a cosmic perspective, but devastating from a human perspective," Marcus replied firmly. "Exactly our point," Prince Zephyros announced as he exploded into existence accompanied by a shower of controlled fireworks, "which is why we need to settle this through proper diplomatic channels before the situation escalates into actual temporal manipulation." The holographic display shifted to show the current political standings. Approximately 40% of the major galactic civilizations supported the Dominion sponsorship proposal. 30% favored some form of protective custody or delayed integration. 20% wanted immediate full citizenship with no transition period. The remaining 10% were proposing solutions that ranged from quarantine to timeline adjustment to something called reality redistribution that Marcus decided he didn't